Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Points. A little bit of a different show today. So first and most obviously, just me in the studio. Soccer is out. However, Ryan is going to be joining me shortly for a series of 2 interviews. And that is the other thing that is going to be different about the show today. The entirety of the show is going to be these 2 interviews. Okay, so here's the backstory. You guys will recall that we have now interviewed twice on this show GHF whistleblower, former Green Beret Anthony Aguilar. One of the key claims that he made when he spoke with us and with other news outlets is that he witnessed, while he was working as a GHF contractor, he witnessed the killing of a young boy that he had interacted with, a boy who he called Amir. That claim is now being contested by GHF through a Fox News digital article and also an article in the Daily Wire. So in order to discuss those claims with Anthony, we're going to have him back on and get his response to that. And before that, we are also going to talk to a spokesman from GHF, a guy named Chapin Fay. We're going to ask him about his claims with regard to Amir, and we have a whole host of other questions, as you can imagine, that we want to ask him about GHF and his operations. We think it's really critical to get a lot of answers from him, and also we're interested in speaking with Aguilar again as well. But recall, our taxpayer dollars are funding these Gaza, quote-unquote, humanitarian foundations operations. So really important to understand, where does their funding come from in totality? Some of it comes from us. Where does the rest of it come from? What are they doing on the ground? And as we all know, because we've covered here, we've seen news reports and eyewitness testimony, and we've talked to doctors who said the same, that over 2,000 Palestinians have been killed in the context of seeking aid, either transiting to or from GHF's aid distribution sites. In addition, at the same time, while GHF has been operating in the Gaza Strip, the Gaza City has descended into famine as determined by the IPC. So certainly a lot of questions there, in addition to getting to the bottom as best we can as to what actually happened to Amir. Prior to this conversation, GHF had actually reached out to us and sent us the Fox News digital story. We replied with a series of questions that we had for them as well. And so in the interest of transparency, before we get into the interview, I want to go ahead and share with you all of the questions that we sent over and their responses, because they will be relevant context for this interview that Ryan and I are about to conduct. So guys, if we can go ahead and put the first slide up on the screen with the questions that we asked here. So you can see that we asked them, please share the biometric data that you provided to Fox News so we can verify their reporting and present it on our show. And guys, this is with regard to the claims specifically regarding Amir, because in the Fox News article, they claimed that Amir's identity was confirmed with biometric data. We go on. Specifically, we would like clarification on which biometric process was used, whether it was photographic facial recognition or another form of biometric data collected at GHF sites. GHF replied to us, we used biometrics including facial recognition, comparison of scars on his head, his paperwork, and was confirmed by multiple people from his family, including mother, stepmother, and other siblings. His mother also provided the actual shirt he wore that day. We have posted photos online. You are happy to do your own analysis as other outlets have done today. Okay, next question that we asked them. As you arranged an interview with Abood, because they're claiming Amir's actual nickname is Abood, for Fox News, we request the same opportunity. We would like one of our reporters to speak with the boy and his mother to help verify his identity, his previous interactions with Aguilar, and the details of their journey into your custody. GHF replied, we have several requests for this. We may do additional interviews with her, but nothing confirmed at this time. GHF spokesperson Chapin Fay is available to come on your show to address this issue, as well as the other, in their words, false accusations that Mr. Aguilar made on your show. In addition, I would suggest visiting the link that includes video of the press conference we held, laying out proof that Mr. Aguilar has lied and provided fabricated documents to the media, as which included his text and signal messages where he begged for his job back and threatened retaliation if he was not. For those of you who watched our original interview with Mr. Aguilar, you'll recall we asked him about these claims from GHF, but we intend to ask him about them again today Fay to provide additional clarification and his response to these GHF allegations. Okay, and as you know, we are going to, in fact, have GHF spokesperson Chapin Fay on the show to answer questions with regard to Amir/Abood and other issues regarding GHF. Okay, let's see the next question we asked them. Aguilar has made several claims in interviews regarding the funding and control of GHF. Could you please provide us with an on-the-record or background statement clarifying which specific governments, including but not limited to the Israeli and U.S. governments, fund the GHF? This is relevant, guys, because I don't know how closely you've been following the story, but GHF has not fully disclosed their funders. We know they've received $30 million from the Trump administration. Outside of that, Chapin Fay said on a different show that they've received funding from Western European nations, but would not specify where that funding came from. This is a somewhat unusual situation, so that's why we're asking. Of course, there's great interest in whether or not they're receiving funding directly or indirectly from Israel. GHF replied, GHF has not received any funding from Israel. As most nonprofits, we do not disclose our donors to protect their privacy unless they choose to on their own. Let's put the next question up on the screen. We asked, Aguilar also claimed that U.S. citizens working under GHF are currently operating inside Gaza on tourist visas granted by the state of Israel. Could you please provide clarity on this arrangement? GHF replied, not sure what he's talking about here. All GHF personnel, which includes security and former UN USAID humanitarian aid workers, are authorized to work. That's an area where I'm hoping to get clarification today from Chapin, because I don't know what that means, authorized to work. I'd like to know more about the specifics of that arrangement, the specific legal statute, etc. Aguilar told us that they all came in on a common tourist visa, and of course that has incredible implications for their legal liability with regard to the actions that GHF contractors are taking on site every day. And I believe we have one final question, guys, that we can put up on the screen here. We asked, as you have previously granted certain journalists access to GHF sites, we respectfully request the same for one of our representatives. This would allow us to independently verify many of the statements you have made and to address Aguilar's claims. The backstory here, guys, is, of course, we would like to gain access to the GHF site so we can evaluate ourselves what is going on there. They've allowed friendly influencers and Senator Joni Ernst to visit and access the sites, along, of course, with Trump administration officials. Several Democratic senators were denied access, and other independent journalists as well. GHF replies, there's been zero evidence to any of Mr. Aguilar's claims. There's plenty of evidence that he has lied basically about everything. We are planning to begin embeds with U.S., European, and other international press, but there is currently a long list, so not sure that this is possible in the short term. And I actually think there is one more question, guys, isn't there, that we asked? In a recent interview on our show, Aguilar alleged that a Palestinian worker at a GHF site was detained on suspicion of working with Hamas, and that he later witnessed a drone strike in the immediate vicinity. Can you provide clarity on whether this worker was targeted by the IDF or whether any such incident occurred? And here we get a blanket denial from GHF. They say this is one of many fabrications by Mr. Aguilar. So that gives you a sense of our communications with GHF prior to this interview and some of the background. Some of these questions Ryan and I will, get into and continue to press on, because we certainly would like access to the information that they provided other news outlets to help confirm the identity of the boy they claim is the same boy that had an interaction with Aguilar. And let's go ahead and put the Fox News, guys. A1, put this back up on the screen. Let me just set this interview up a little bit with some of the detail from this article so we can all start on the same page here. They say exclusive video reveals Gaza boy said to be killed by IDF is alive. Veteran told multiple outlets he witnessed IDF forces kill the boy at humanitarian aid site in May. So let me read you a little bit of this article. They say a young Gazan boy dubbed Amir, who traveled to a GHF distribution site and was reported as having been killed by the IDF in May, has been found alive and was hiding out with his mother. In an exclusive interview with the boy, whose real name was confirmed by the GHF to be Abdul Rahim Muhammad Hamdan, but who goes by Abood, the 8-year-old and his mother answered questions provided by Fox News Digital through a GHF translator, in which the pair appeared excited ahead of their planned extraction from the Gaza Strip. Abood and his mother, whose name is Najla, were safely evacuated from the Gaza Strip on Thursday, though the location has not been disclosed in this reporting for their protection. Outside the Gaza Strip is nice, Aboud said, according to a translation verified by Fox News Digital. So those are the claims that GHF is making, and as published by Fox News Digital. So we'll start there, and then we'll get into a lot of other issues with GHF spokesperson Chapin Fay, who joins us now. Chapin Fay, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I just set up for the audience, but I'll just set up for you a little bit as well. As you know, we previously hosted GHF whistleblower Anthony Aguilar on our show. He made a claim that he had a series of interactions with a young boy that he called Amir, who he yet later said he saw shot and apparently lifeless outside of a GHF aid site. You are now claiming, and Fox News Digital has published a report on this, that you have located this boy that Anthony Aguilar claimed to have this interaction with, whose nickname you say is actually Aboud. Can you just go into as much detail as you possibly can about how you located this boy and how you identified that you believe this is the same child from those interactions? And by the way, we can put the images up on the screen, guys, of the images that Aguilar took. One of the images of the boy, this is B1, and the boy that you located in the Gaza Strip.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me to talk about this. We are, very grateful and overjoyed that we were able to find this young boy that Mr. Aguilar has politicized and, quite frankly, weaponized and turned into a commodity to use against us in his quest for fame here. As you mentioned, he called him Amir. So right off the bat, that was made up by Mr. Aguilar. His actual name is Abdul Rahim Muhammad Hamdan. His family calls him Aboud. And one of the unique parts of GHF's model is that we innovate. We do not stridently adhere to things that don't work. We change and adapt every single day. And one of the main ways we do that is our humanitarian team, who are out there every day, have created a relationship with the aid seekers. Some of the things we're doing now, like women's distributions and a reservation system, we could only do because of the trust that we have with the aid seekers. And in fact, some of the methods that we use to distribute aid come directly from the aid seekers. So in those conversations, they went immediately to work through word of mouth. They were able to go, interact with the crowd and show pictures of Aboud. And they finally located his extended family and then his immediate family and started interviewing and talking with those folks. We also used biometrics and the very shirt that he was wearing in the video and photos, some of which Mr. Aguilar circulated, by the way, telling his colleagues while he was still here how important and good the mission was. So you've talked to him. He can tell you about why he's changed his mind all of a sudden. But so that's really how we did it, and we're very grateful and glad. We have people who put their lives on the line to feed people in Gaza. This is one of, if not the most complex humanitarian crises of our lifetime, and it's happening during a war zone. Just recently, the IDF, intensified the war by going into Gaza City, and that creates, logistic challenges and safety challenges every single day to the people who are out there working. But Mr. Aguilar, almost everything he has said has been proven false. He lied about seeing the boy shot as recently as within the last 2 weeks. He lied about the site that he was on. The site he claimed he was on wouldn't even open for a couple of weeks. He lied about being in the video. It was one of our security contractors who actually injured his hand before he came in country, and you could see the remnants of the injury. He lied about what he said in the interaction. Almost everything he has said about GHF has been a lie and proven false. There's affidavits on our website from his colleagues who are still here, by the way, risking their lives to protect the humanitarian team, and our local nationals from Gaza, who are the first instance of interaction with the crowd and run our sites. So yeah, we are very happy that this little boy is now on his way to, he's in a safe and secure location and on his way to a new life with his family out of Gaza. And, I think it's sad that Mr. Aguilar has a vested interest in a little boy being dead. He at one point said it would be a blessing to find this little boy alive. And when we did find the boy alive, he did not express any blessings. He doubled down on the lies and really continued a smear campaign. So what kind of man does that? I'll let your audience determine the answer to that question. That's for others to debate.
Yeah, and we'll be talking with him After you join us, it is extremely important to get to the truth of what's going on at these aid sites. Can you talk a little bit about the biometric data that you collect among aid seekers that helped you, locate this boy, and also what type of video surveillance for your own security and for your own records do you have of the GHF sites?
Sure. So our sites are monitored by video 24 hours a day. In our operations center, we have threat analysts and people who monitor it every day because of the Hamas threat. The threat is never zero, though where we are currently operating is behind IDF lines. And so they work, we work with the IDF only in the sense that to deconflict as they create humanitarian zones outside our sites. So they're monitored at all times. When there is a threat, we have closed sites in the past. Currently, as of yesterday, Site 4, which is our most northern site in central Gaza, was closed because of a threat. So we only had 2 sites open yesterday, though we were still able to deliver 1.5 million meals. And so the biometrics we use, we actually, we're very proud of this reservation system we're currently using. One of the, I mentioned we innovate and we don't adhere to, stridently adhere to things that may not work, and we're constantly trying to overcome challenges. One of those, right, was the way our distribution works in a site. Oftentimes men and faster, younger, fitter men can leave the women and children behind. So 2 months ago, we started women's only distributions. And again, I'm not here to say that we are perfect, right? It was, the chaos dissipates every single day. One of our early women's distributions, too many men showed up. Hamas is always waging a disinformation campaign, called it a day of shame, told men to show up. So we had to cancel that particular distribution. Now, if you see it, 3,000 women come on site after we've dispersed the first half of the distribution and the men leave. They sit down, they organize themselves, and they get handed directly a box of aid, each and every one of them on their way out of the site. We've been able to build this trust, this two-way trust via our humanitarian team, which allows us to make ID cards for these women. They can reserve online so that they know they're guaranteed to get aid for their family, for them and their family, so they don't have to run, they don't have to come during the rush in the beginning. And we are only able to do that because of the trust we've built up. We do not share any of this information with anyone outside. It is very securely encrypted. I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but it's top of the line, and we do not share. We do not share with the government of Israel. We do not share with the IDF. It is solely for reservation purposes, and that's similar to the way we found the boy. That information is not shared. We do not have a relationship with the IDF where we share information like that.
Chapin, that claim has been disputed by the AP, and we can put B3 up on the screen. They interviewed, I believe, 2 separate GHF contractors anonymously, and they say, according to that contractor, the Israeli army is leveraging your distribution system to access information. Both contractors said that cameras monitor distributions at each site. American analysts and Israeli soldiers sit in a control room where the footage is screened in real time. They go on to say the contractor who took the video said some cameras are equipped with facial recognition software. In live shots of the site seen by the AP, some video streams are labeled analytics. Those were the ones that had facial recognition software. If a person of interest is seen on camera and their information is already in the system, their name and age pops up on the computer screen. Israeli soldiers watching the screens take notes and cross-check the analyst's information with their own drone footage from the sites. Isn't this a violation of the humanitarian principles of impartiality?
So we adhere to all 4 humanitarian principles, and much of what was said in there is not true. And again, these are anonymous sources that you're citing.
As verified by the AP, who say they viewed video that confirmed the allegations.
So I'm not sure how they would get that video if they have never been inside the operations center, right? That video is not shared. And certainly there are IDF that work with us on threat assessment. But we do not share the information. I actually don't believe we have facial recognition software. That's not what we use it for.
So what biometrics did you use to identify Abood?
Well, so that would be a different case, right? That's not what we use on a daily basis. We are not currently using biometrics in any large scale. I mean, the goal for us is to get to a place where we can use biometrics to make sure that the people who reserve aid and come repeatedly to the sites are the ones that are getting the aid.
So could
But
you
again,
provide
we do
us?
not share.
Could you provide us with the biometrics that you used to identify Abood and give us access to his mother? And him, so that we could confirm, or an independent, third party if you don't trust us for whatever reason.
I can certainly make that request, but of course, the Daily Wire and Fox News have reported the story. I can certainly make that request. I'm not the final arbiter of what we can share. We have not shared, for security reasons, much of our security footage because, again, there is not a zero threat from Hamas.
Doesn't that that seems like an easy way to disprove? Because of course Aguilar made other claims, not just about Amir, about the operations at GHF sites. So wouldn't releasing to an independent journalist who is not going to disclose the whole thing for security purposes, if that's a legitimate concern, why not release a full 24 hours so people can see how well and how effectively this is going? If Aguilar is lying in all respects.
Sure. I mean, it has been proven, and we have released enough of the information to prove that almost everything he said is false. You could see it on our website. I mean, we have timestamp videos there that prove that the videos he's using to bolster his claims are, one, not of what he says they are, two, not the same day, not the same thing, right? He is talking about IDF fire and blaming GHF for that fire. I mean, as he points out, I don't have a military background, but I've been there. I could tell you after one day that IDF machine gun fire from a tank sounds a lot different than what the guns our security personnel carry, who, by the way, have never shot at anyone ever. There have been no deaths on our sites except for a stampede that we believe was fomented by Hamas. But we have never shot at anyone. And in fact, our security personnel are not hired because they know how to pull a trigger. They're hired because they know how not to pull a trigger, right? They are highly trained, highly skilled, highly intelligent.
Let me just challenge you on a couple pieces there, and I'll get Ryan as well, because DropSite has done some reporting on the crowd crush incident that you're talking about. So we can put C5 up on the screen. This is, again, from an AP report. They spoke with GHF contractors who said their colleagues regularly lobbed stun grenades and pepper spray in the direction of Palestinians. One contractor said bullets were fired in all directions, in the air, into the ground, at times toward the Palestinians, recalling at least one instance where he thought someone had been hit. And these allegations, as given to the AP, were backed up and corroborated by this video, in which you can hear American accented GHF contractors. You can hear nearby bullets and them celebrating, saying, "I think he got one of them," and someone saying, "Hell yeah, boy." This is C6 control room, if we could please play this.
Armed American security contractors at one of the sites discuss how to disperse Palestinians nearby.
Hey, got an IDF tank posted on the northwest corner now. I brought him in and talked to him. Let's do the show first. I told him to hold there. I don't want this to be too aggressive.
At that moment, bursts of gunfire erupt close by. At least 15 shots. The camera's view is obscured by a large dirt mound. The contractor who took the video told AP that he saw other contractors shooting in the direction of Palestinians who had just collected their food and were departing.
So, Chapin, does this not corroborate the allegation that GHF contractors are using live ammunition on or near the sites?
So it's just a fact that they never have. And you can see in that video, you can see all of the American contractors. There are no American contractors outside that site. So any fire that you hear is from the IDF, who, by the way, does use live fire for crowd control purposes, which we have pushed them often to be safer and more secure. The American military does not train its personnel to use lethal force for crowd control. It's not last on a list of tactics. It's just not on the tactics. So our men and women who are security personnel, or men, they do not use live fire for crowd control purposes.
So that hell yeah boy, that was an IDF soldier?
I don't know. I wasn't there, but you can see clearly from the site that the guys who are casually walking around, those are our security personnel, and they're looking outside the site. And if that's the site that I think it is, The aid seekers are actually more than a kilometer away waiting to come in. It is a long road in, and there is no IDF on that particular road. What the IDF does is let thousands of Gazans behind their lines into our sites, which again is unique for an army. I don't know that the U.S. military would ever do that. But no, we have never fired at anyone.
Just to pick up on Krystal's point, the Gaza Ministry of Health last night reports that 14 more Palestinians were killed at aid sites and 85 were injured. We're still getting details about this latest massacre. But to her point about the video surveillance, you said you have 24-hour video monitoring of this. Seems like the easiest way to clear this up would just be to release the tapes to the media or to a neutral third party. If it's not the contractors and it's the IDF that's doing the shooting, that will be apparent in the videos. Like, are the videos being stored? And is there an inspector general? Is there an international body? Is there a national body? Is there a neutral news organization that you feel that you could release this to? Because every single day there are new reports about massacres at aid sites almost. And the way to dispel it would be to release these tapes.
Right. So again, it's a little bit more complicated than that. This is an ongoing war, and there is a Hamas threat. Our people have been doxxed, right?
But you're behind IDF lines. You said you're behind IDF lines.
Yes, that doesn't mean the threat is zero, right? There was the IDF had to take out a threat.
I don't understand how that relates to releasing videos to a neutral journalist or independent third party.
Because Hamas is studying what we do. They are often on our site taking pictures of people and processes and learning so that they can presumably create violence.
But we're not talking about releasing it to Hamas. We're talking about releasing it to an independent journalist or third party so that they could verify.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would just say that it's more complicated than that. We have people's on our team's addresses and full names being printed in legitimate media outlets for no other reason. There's no journalistic reason to print people's addresses and where people are staying in Israel, which has happened. We had a humanitarian guy, a man who has spent his entire life working for USAID, mostly in the Middle East and Africa, helping people and doing humanitarian aid work, did a press briefing to describe what our humanitarian efforts were like, and immediately his name was printed. Reporters were calling his language teachers to find out information about him, not for journalistic reasons, but to print where he's staying in Israel. And he now is being protested, and his safety and security are in jeopardy. That's happening to our leadership in America.
So
Tony Aguilar is trying to dox people right now.
Okay,
he's giving out operational security.
There's no independent journalist that you trust to review this footage. They're all in league with Hamas.
Well, you yourself, your colleague just cited the Gaza Ministry of Health. That is a Hamas agency. They do not distinguish between combatants and civilians, and we just learned they do not distinguish between men and women.
Experts who view those death statistics actually believe that they're an undercount. If you don't trust their statistics, however, we could take a listen to what the UK head of MSF, or Doctors Without Borders, has to say about what their doctors in the field are seeing around your aid distributions. And Ryan and I have both individually spoken with doctors, American doctors, who have gone into Gaza and come out and say that every time there is an aid distribution at one of your sites, they end up with a mass casualty event at the hospital. So guys, this is B5. If we could go ahead and play for Chapin what the head of the Doctors Without Borders UK has to say about how this aid distribution is going.
Your conclusion, very clearly, reading it, is that it's been disastrous.
Absolutely, and I think it's been disastrous by design. So our report just covers 2 health centres, so 2 primary care centres are not designed to deal with trauma cases, really, particularly. Down in the south of the Gaza Strip in Rafah, and over the last 7 weeks, so it only covers a period of 7 weeks, so it only covers 2 of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites, but those 2 small health centres have received 1,380 cases of people who were casualties at the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation
Just your 2 clinics?
Just those 2 clinics. So we know it's a drop in the ocean because we know that many other people are not coming to the clinics, they're going to other hospitals or other locations. But in our 2 clinics, 1,380 casualties, of which 174 had been shot. And that included also 28 dead bodies. So that's a huge number of people and many children amongst them. So about 20% of the cases were children. including 20% of the people who've been shot. We had cases such as, an 8-year-old shot through the chest and a 12-year-old shot through the stomach. And they all, the casualties all described the sort of same scenario of going to seek food, of starving, going to seek food. That's the only place now in Gaza where you can try and access food. You essentially have no choice. You either stay home and starve to death, or you go to one of these sites to try and access some food. And they were then either shot or they were injured in the chaos and the stampedes that happen around those sites.
So Chapin, let's say we take your word for it that none of these deaths are happening on the sites. They're all done by the IDF, either when people are transiting to or from the sites. As a humanitarian organization, you're not just responsible for distributing aid, but also for helping to ensure the logistics and safety of people who are trying to receive that aid. So don't you bear some responsibility for the recurring, near daily aid massacres that are being reported on in the press that Palestinians are attesting to and that doctors are attesting to as well?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'll address the first false thing she said, which was the last thing she said, that we are the only aid organization operating. That is 100% false. The United Nations is operating, is trying to move aid further into Gaza, and they are unable to do it. Right? They moved in the month of August. They had around, I think, 1,100 trucks that they brought across the border into Gaza, and 93.5% of them were diverted by presumably Hamas or others. You can also see online all over social media. That's on the United Nations own website. That's their own website.
I just have to correct you on one thing there. The New York Times reported that according to Israeli military officials, so not Hamas, Israeli military officials, there is zero evidence of systematic looting of aid. Now, what I will grant you is happening is that you have mass starvation in the Gaza Strip, including since your organization began operating, which seems like an indictment of the efficacy of what you're doing there. But you do have a lot of desperate people who are at times climbing on trucks and trying to take the aid out of sheer starvation and desperation. There's no doubt about that. The solution to that is allowing vastly more aid in and having the type of system that the UN was previously running, where they had some 400 distribution sites versus the 4 that your organization runs.
Right, but if the United Nations wanted to have open 400 distribution sites right now, they could.
Chapin,
who controls
the borders to Gaza? Who controls the borders to Gaza?
So where are these trucks going?
Who controls the borders to Gaza? Is it the UN? Who controls what comes into Gaza?
We're talking about inside Gaza. What does the border have to do with that? We're talking about trucks
what is
inside
allowed
Gaza.
into Gaza? Is it the UN? No. It's the
So
Israelis.
the UN did not bring in 1,100 trucks in the month of August. That's what you're telling me. You're telling me that right now they're not moving hundreds of trucks into Gaza.
What I'm asserting, which is what has been reported not just by the UN, but by any number of media outlets, by United States senators who have visited the region, that the amount of aid that enters the Gaza Strip is a direct function of what the Israelis decide are going to go in. And we've had announcements from the Israelis in the past where they were going to block effectively all aid from coming in. And your organization has been set up effectively as a replacement for the previously existing UN distribution system.
The UN is currently trying to distribute aid, moving hundreds of trucks across the border a day. They just have a problem with being able to do it. That's just 100% false. What you said is not true. The United Nations is operating as we are. We were never meant to replace the UN. We agree. I will 100% agree with you right now. 4 sites is not enough. We were meant to have 8 sites. We were meant to be one small part of a much broader, more complex solution to one of the most complex humanitarian crises on planet Earth. And if the United Nations, which we have an open offer to collaborate with, would collaborate with us, imagine how many more people we could feed.
Let me give you some specifics, and we'll get Ryan in here. So this is D9, guys, just to make it really clear, the dynamics, because it is true. Israel is allowing some trucks from the UN in at this point. Between the 6th and 12th of August, so this is roughly a month ago, humanitarians made 81 attempts to coordinate planned movements with Israeli authorities, including transfer fuel and personnel. Of this number, 35 were facilitated, 29 initially approved, then impeded on the ground, 12 were denied, and 5 had to be withdrawn by the organizers. So that's the reality of what the UN is dealing with here. And that's why I say the number of trucks which are allowed to come in directly relate to what the Israelis decide they want to allow. And Ryan, let me go ahead and get Ryan in here because I've been sort of dominating. Sorry.
Well, no, just to add context to what Krystal's saying there, and you know the history there. On March 2nd, the Israeli government blocked all humanitarian and medical aid, food and medicine, into Gaza. That lasted for almost 2 months. Israel argued that the reason that they did that was that at these 400 distribution sites, Hamas was getting access to the food. And that was a problem for the Israeli war effort, and it was a problem for the Palestinian civilians inside Gaza. So they said, we're going to redesign it. So we're going to have only 4 aid sites that are many kilometers away from population centers, and they're going to be behind IDF lines so that Hamas cannot steal the aid. And so then they reopened aid through these 4 systems. So are you saying that your understanding from the Israeli government is that if the UN and other humanitarian aid organizations wanted to open up 400 aid sites tomorrow and get an influx of trucks in, that they would be able to do that, and that Israel is not standing in the way? Because famine was declared on August 22nd. Since then, there has been an average of 11 trucks a day allowed into Gaza. That's since the famine was declared. And so are you saying that what you have heard from Israeli authorities is that they would allow unimpeded aid and they would allow the humanitarian aid groups to open those 400 sites again?
What I'm telling you is in the month of August, the UN moved 1,100 trucks into Gaza. That's what I'm telling you.
And because the UN didn't want to deliver the trucks, or because Israel was blocking the trucks from entering and closing the distribution sites because they said Hamas was controlling these distribution sites?
The United Nations distributed and moved 1,100 trucks. I believe that's the number. I could be wrong exactly the number. It's over 1,000 trucks in the month of August. Went over the border and into Gaza.
Oh, are you saying that's a? You're saying that's a?
You can see it on the United Nations website. You can see it on the United Nations website.
There's 31 days in August. 600 minimum of 600 trucks a day is needed. So you're saying that they did less than 2 days worth of what's needed.
It is a good thing that trucks are moving in. It is a good thing that the airdrops are happening. We are concerned with the safety and security of it, but we believe more aid is the answer to many of the problems that we're talking about. When you mentioned the blockade of aid, when we were approved to go in, we were approved for 8 sites. The IDF only built us 4, so we are beholden to when and where because they're waging war. We pushed them every single day, including back then. We fought publicly, and you could see it publicly. We fought for the United Nations to also be allowed in. We a letter was sent in August by over 200 international NGOs from over 15 countries, urging people to work with us, right? This is a complex problem. We would love to work with the United Nations. We've had none of our aid diverted. So by their own metrics, they had 93.5% of the trucks, which again, we agree is not enough.
Why is it that on July 9th, GHF posted to Twitter, Hamas wants GHF out of Gaza and the UN back in so it can once again control the food supply? That certainly doesn't seem like a statement, full support for UN aid distribution here.
Sure. So we support the UN distributing aid. We do not support Hamas taking it. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Our mission is to feed the people of Gaza in a way that Hamas can't steal it.
Do you have evidence that the Israeli military doesn't have, that Hamas has been stealing aid? Because the Israeli military officials say that's not happening.
You could see it online. I can show it to you. The armed men driving trucks around Gaza City prior to this recent IDF offensive. I mean, you can see it on social media. We'll send it to you for sure.
Chapin, I want to go back
it doesn't matter whether it's Hamas or anyone else,
but
right?
I want to go back to the origin of this question, which was about the 2,000 plus aid seekers who have been killed in the context of seeking aid at your sites. The testimony from doctors.
So you keep saying at your sites. That is false.
It's also, so you don't accept that that's
outside, right outside your sites.
Well, again, outside. I don't know why you're trying so hard to
well, my question is
these casualties to us.
But it's not a coincidence.
My question is,
Nations on. The United Nations has had a couple 100% uptick in casualties at their trucks and convoys recently. Have you been interrogating those numbers as much as you're interrogating ours?
Chapin, we have actually
This is a war zone.
We have covered those aspects as well, but we've spoken with doctors directly. We heard the testimony from the head of Doctors Without Borders UK.
Yes, I'm happy to respond to that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Ryan's news outlet has spoken directly to Palestinian eyewitnesses, and in every instance, they say that nearly daily there are aid massacres when people are transiting to and from your sites. Now, let's say you're correct, and that if we could see all the security footage, you would be vindicated, that your contractors have nothing to do with that. Do you bear any responsibility for those killings that are happening when aid seekers are transiting to and from your sites? Or do you just think you have nothing to do with that? The IDF's going to do what they have to do, and it's not your business?
As I said, we push the IDF to deconflict and to make it safe across Gaza and expand humanitarian zones every single day. We are not affiliated with the government of Israel, and we are not affiliated with the IDF, though we work with them, of course, on safety. And I'm glad you brought me back to Nasser Hospital and Doctors Without Borders, where they operate, and the numbers that come out of there. Our model is unique. We use local Gazans who run the sites. They're the ones who interact with the crowd and download the aid and hand it out and all of that. Mm-hmm. They currently live on site 24 hours a day and cover their faces because a few months ago, they used to take a bus to work, and Hamas hijacked a bus, shot 9 people, and murdered them on video. The remaining survivors of that massacre, around 20 of them were brought to Nasser Hospital, where Doctors Without Borders operates, and they were refused treatment, and they were left to die in the courtyard, in the parking lot, because of their affiliation with us.
That's an extraordinary claim. Do you have evidence for that?
Sure, it's been reported in the media. Not widely, because it doesn't fit a neat narrative. Doctors Without Borders also has an agenda. There's been recent reporting about them running ads against us. And again, Nasser Hospital, who you can see recent reporting and hostage testimony that there were hostages at Nasser Hospital. The IDF just had an offensive against it. So again, the Gaza Ministry of Health is Hamas, one of the combatants, and which has no moral equivalency with Israel and the IDF, which is a professional military. The IDF doesn't confirm many of those casualties, and I would stress. So
you don't believe that this is happening? You just reject. You just reject the evidence of doctors, witnesses, outside organizations, journalists.
I'm not saying there are no casualties. I wonder why you're trying so hard to tag a group that is tasked solely with feeding people in some sort of agenda. I don't know why you're trying so hard to make that true.
If you're supposed to be feeding people, you're not doing very well since there's a famine there.
We've delivered 150 million meals and have had no food diverted. We've delivered almost 160 million meals.
During the time of your operation, the IPC has declared a famine and children are starving to death. So I would say that's an indictment of the efficacy of your actions.
The debate over famine is for others to determine. I mean, it's been reported that the United Nations changed its standards to create food, to create that.
False.
That's fine. That's for someone else to debate. Where we operate in the South, and I will grant you that the need is more acute in the North, where we do not operate. Mm-hmm. Where we operate in the South, we have put 160 million meals directly into the hands of the Palestinian people. We have 3,000 women who come to our sites. You can ask them about the safety and about Hamas threat and all of that stuff. Why would they come to our sites if they weren't feeding their families with it?
We have spoken with Palestinians about their experience, which is what we're trying to relay to you. And Ryan has done extraordinary reporting in this regard.
Well, Chapin, we've reached out when we heard this claim that they allowed people to die in the courtyard of Nasser Hospital. We reached out to MSF. We reached out to Nasser Hospital. The doctors there at both organizations say that they have no idea what you're talking about. They've no evidence of this at all. If you can put us in touch with any family members of those who died in the courtyard outside of Nasser Hospital, we would absolutely report that. Can you commit to attempting to try to find some family members of those who died outside the hospital grounds? Because they say that it's absolutely untrue. Sure. Okay. I also wanted to ask you, one of the things you get criticized for is
this is an active war zone. And again, I'm not here to say that GHF is perfect. I'm not here to say there are no casualties in this war. Every casualty is regrettable. And again, we push the IDF every single day, right? We don't shoot at people. We have never shot at people. The only times they have ever shot their weapons was into the air the day of the stampede. So if a former U.S. Marine could run into the stampede and save a child's life, that same day a gun was pulled on him in the crowd. Same man didn't raise his weapon, didn't fire it, ran at the man, tackled him, and took the pistol away. And you're trying to tell me these people are out being maniacs. It's just not true. These are honorable men doing honorable work. This is a mission that they enjoy because for once they're not asked to shoot at people. They're being asked to help protect people whose only mission in life is to feed the people of Gaza, which we've done to the tune of 160 million meals.
You said a moment ago that there's no connection, no relationship with the Israeli government. We could put up D1 here. This is Bezalel Smotrich saying that Israel is allocating funds for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And earlier you said that that the IDF helps you with threat assessment, and that you have rooms where you have monitors up where you're checking to see if there are ongoing threats at the site. So are you saying that the IDF is in those monitoring rooms with you where you're collecting the data?
So when I say helping with threat assessment, the IDF is doing constant threat assessment in this war. And they let us know if there is a threat that we haven't determined, right? One of our sites was closed yesterday because of a threat up north. Hamas comes, they pay people to dig tunnels. There's it's structurally difficult logistically because there's a bridge that people hide under. So that's what I mean. So the IDF is constantly doing threat assessment. You don't have to ask them, what kind of technology and how they do that. I don't have any particular insight into that. But we do coordinate with them and work together on whether the site is safe, right? If the site is not safe, we do not open, right? And you'll notice if you get our daily updates, we have 4 sites. 1 is being rebuilt currently. So we have 3 sites that are operational. For example, yesterday only 2 were open because, again, the one in central Gaza, there was, some sort of identified threat that I, am not privy to, and we didn't open that site. So that's what I mean by working with the IDF on threats. And on your the Smotrich reporting, I have read the reporting too. We have not received any money. I have seen him talk about the humanitarian a fund, right, which may not be us. I don't really know, but we do not take any money from the government of Israel, and we likely would not if offered. But as of today, there has been no money and no funding from the government of Israel. Our only relationship with the government of Israel is that we are approved to operate, and certainly, through the IDF on deconfliction.
And one of the other things that you get criticized for is the content of the packages that you give out. Pasta and some other, starch and other basics. According to a humanitarian aid worker I spoke with yesterday, there are roughly 300,000 children 5 and under currently facing acute malnutrition, either severe or moderate. They need a very particular type of response. It's also often this particular nutritional peanut butter packages that go in that some aid organizations bring in. What are you doing for those 300,000 children 5 and under who are facing malnutrition, who probably can't get through the desert to these sites and then learn, as you just said, like I'm sure thousands of people showed up to the site that was closed last night. And the IDF usually uses then live gunfire to disperse the crowd who thought it was going to be open, but then found that it wasn't. So how do the children 5 and under, what are you doing for them? And are you working on bringing in something other than the pasta and the lentils and what you were criticized for at the beginning?
Yeah, happy to answer that. But on the piece about when we're closed, I don't know that that's true. Certainly can't confirm that there was no crowd, but we communicate via, many sort of a holistic way. And we have a flag system, right? It's red when it's closed and it's green when it's open. We do social media. A lot of them have devices. So I don't know that that's true that that they didn't know we were closed. By the way, the flag
real quickly,
system
how long? On average, I've heard they are open for about 8 minutes. What's your sense of how long the site is open when it goes green?
I've been there. So the first part of the distribution can be quick, longer than 8 minutes, but certainly in half an hour. So our model is a little different, right? We have these sites, these secure sites. Our aid convoys come. The local workers use forklifts, download the aid. That convoy leaves, and then a mobile team comes that includes the humanitarians, and they open the site. Now with the women's distributions, that takes a long time to physically put a bag when we have them, because it's easier for them to carry, or a box directly into their hands. It can take up to 4 or 5 hours. But yes, we open for a discrete time period, and then we close. And again, I'm not here to tell you that we're perfect, right? One of the challenges, the reason we do women's distributions, women and children at the end, is because the aid was going too quickly, and it was going to younger, fitter men for a little while, right? And we were trying to solve for that challenge. On the children's nutrition, we actually have Samaritan's Purse now on our sites for probably about a month now. They are distributing medical aid. We had former military medics and doctors performing those duties. We now have Samaritan's Purse, which is a INGO that does that, and that's their specialty. They also
do they have any
donated
nutritional?
what you're talking about.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So they donated ready-to-use supplemental food, RUSF. I think the nickname for it is Plumpy Nut, exactly what you described. It's like a peanut buttery substance. And one of the requirements, they came to the sites to make sure, it was something that could work for them on the medical aid and on the RUSF, because you can't just, from what I'm told, you can't just like surge the population with that particular item, because if you eat too much of it when you're hungry, right, or starving, it can have negative health consequences. So one of their requirements was that it be handed out individually to people, or individually put in the boxes. So during the women's distribution, we hand them out. I apologize, I'm blanking on the number, but it's certainly in the tens of thousands. It might be even 6 figures by now. It's been about a month. We also work with many of the women who are mothers, so that they can be vetted, and then we can give them a box of it, right, of just that, so they can distribute it to their family and friends and community. So we are doing that. Again, we have to pretend there's only one way to feed or distribute aid to the people of Gaza, right? We are doing one small part here, and that's one of our innovations that seem to have been working. Samaritan's Purse, so they're, one of the things I find fascinating is, they see children, right? They bring from the distribution side to the humanitarian side on our sites. They bring past the security personnel. They bring children in, if they're scraped or cut, or many of them are barefoot. One of our humanitarians actually started a fund to provide shoes for some of the people that don't have them. But often they're like bloody feet kind of injuries. And now Samaritan's Purse is doing that. But they do follow-ups, right? If a kid was stitched up 2 weeks prior, they'll bring him into the site and stitch him up again. Do the follow-up. So we're glad that Samaritan's Purse is able to do that in a professional way. We're talking with them about building wells on our sites as well, so we can have an ongoing supply of water to distribute as well. So those are the kind of innovations that GHF is looking into doing.
So they're almost at, and hopefully over 100,000 of these distribution. As I mentioned, though,
I don't have that statistic at my fingertips.
Let's even say it's 200,000 at this point.
Yeah,
there's 300,000 kids needing 3 meals a day. That's it's close to 1 million meals a day just for the children 5 and under who are facing malnutrition. Like at this moment, it seems like and I think you would probably agree, like you said, it can't just be the 4 sites. There should be a flood of aid going into Gaza. So then where is the problem? Like the Palestinians
we can't solve this problem alone.
Right, the Palestinians have said flood aid in. So you would agree, just flood the aid in.
Definitely. And
UN and everybody else.
Yes. When the UN started moving trucks again before this offensive, the pressure started coming down in our area as well, right? And technically, with our sites from central to south, we're within, we think, 1 million of the population, right? It's a 2 million it's over 2 million, so it's not enough. We totally agree. But we see, right? We put out a couple 100 pounds of flour a day, and it has immediate impact on the local market, right? So the more aid that's out there, even if it's being sold, as long as it's not price gouging or being hoarded by, I hate to blame Hamas for everything, but gangs or whatever, as long as it's getting out there, it makes everything safer, right? The only reason we can do some of these things, like the women's distribution, which are actually very calm and orderly, the only reason we can do that is because some of the pressure in the areas we are serving is coming down. We actually do not, again, I'm not going to debate whether there's famine or not, but where we operate, we see a lot of people coming often. I go a couple of times a week, and even I see repeat faces and have relationships with some of the women and children who we see every day. So the people who are there are coming often, and we are seeing people get healthier.
So,
and we are
Chapin,
seeing the crowds
there's
become calmer.
A few more things we want to get from you.
Sure.
First of all, just because it's such a crucial issue, I know you don't trust the Gaza Health Ministry because you say they're Hamas-run organization. You don't trust Nasser Hospital. You don't trust Doctors Without Borders. You don't trust the doctors we've spoken with. Maybe you trust the IDF because IDF soldiers spoke with Haaretz. We could put D8 up on the screen and described the transit to and from your sites as, quote, a killing field. The headline here is IDF soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. Where I was stationed, between 1 and 5 people were killed every day. They're treated like a hostile force, no crowd control measures, no tear gas, just live fire with everything imaginable. Heavy machine guns, grenade launchers, mortars. Then once the center opens, the shooting stops and they know they can approach. Our form of communication is gunfire. So I ask you once again, does GHF bear any responsibility for the mass killings that doctors, Palestinians, journalists, and IDF soldiers are attesting to happen outside of your sites when aid seekers are going to and from your distributions?
Well, I hate to be a one-trick pony first, but Haaretz is one of the outlets that publishes where people are staying for no other reason than to
So
cause
you
trouble.
deny the veracity of IDF soldiers?
No, it's
who
not what
are
I said.
attesting to what they experienced while they were in the Gaza Strip.
I'm happy to answer your question. Like I said, we push every day for the IDF to deconflict and to do things in a safer and more secure manner.
All right, well, let's say
But my question for
hypothetically
you
you
is-
accept
here's
this
my
report.
question.
Do you bear any responsibility? You're not answering the question. Let's say you accept this report and you don't think that everything
bear
is Hamas.
responsibility for the casualties
Do you
near their
bear
convoys?
responsibility for any of the massacres that are happening routinely as people attempt to access the aid at your site, which is why many Palestinians call them, and the Financial Times and other outlets, a quote-unquote death trap?
So the 10,000 Palestinians who come every day to our sites, more than 10,000, it's 10,000 at one site, disagree. They don't.
Well, they don't want to starve. It's either starve.
They don't want to starve to death.
First of all, I'm not going to comment on numbers that come from one of the combatants, which is run by a terrorist organization. I'm not here to say there are no casualties.
IDF?
What you're telling me?
Are you calling the IDF a terrorist?
No. The Gaza Ministry of Health, right? And certainly
which is jointly
IDF,
run by the Palestinian Authority, by the way.
Great. I mean, these numbers are hard to verify. No, I understand. These numbers are hard to verify, and it's a war zone. And what you're telling me is we are problematic because there are casualties happening outside our sites. Is the UN problematic?
As a routine part of the process. That's what is being attested to by IDF soldiers, Chapin. They say it's a killing field.
Right.
No crowd control measures, no tear gas, just live fire with everything imaginable. Heavy machine guns, grenade launchers, mortars. That's what's happening. I mean, listen, we can play you endless amount of videos of what this sounds like and looks like.
But if they're launching grenades at a crowd, we would be well over the casualties you're trying to tag the GHF with. I mean, so just
over 2,000?
Interrogate some of these statistics. Right, over 3 months. And again,
it may well be an undercount.
There are zero.
You're right, Chapin. It might be an undercount.
It may. And did you tell the United Nations they should stop operating because there are casualties on the way to their convoys, or when their truck runs over an aid seeker that is
You're dodging the question.
Social media?
So is your answer effectively?
I don't speak for the IDF. I don't speak for the IDF. We've had no casualties.
Let me encapsulate. Your response is no. We bear no responsibility. What happens outside of our sites is none of our business. And if IDF is massacring aid seekers who are transiting through the desert to our site,
you may not like my answer, but those are not the words that I used. I mean, those aren't the words.
But you're not answering my question. So I'm trying to get you to actually respond.
I'm not denying that there are casualties. I'm not denying that there are casualties in this. You're going to have to ask the IDF.
Do you bear any responsibility?
We have killed no one. No one has died on our sites.
Do you bear any responsibility?
That's a ridiculous question.
It's not. So answer it then. If it's so ridiculous,
does the UN bear? I mean, does the UN bear responsibility for the casualties?
For your own organization.
Have you asked the UN? Have you asked Dr. Zellweger if they bear any responsibility?
The question that is being put to you right now.
And let's
answer your question.
Okay, let's put up
this is a war zone. This is a dangerous operation.
So the answer is no. You bear no responsibility.
There are casualties in this war, and if they are civilians, that is tragic. And we push the IDF. by the way, our job is to feed people, period. And when any organization, including the IDF and the government of Israel, make that more difficult, we call them out publicly and voraciously. You can see it on our website. You can see it in our past statements. We wish the IDF.
I don't hear you doing it today.
In a safer way.
Well, let's
I don't speak
jointly
for the IDF, and I don't dictate war tactics to the IDF.
Well,
you're going to have
let's jointly condemn one here. Control room. Let's put up B4. There's dozens of these, but let's put up B4.
اطلق نار على المدنيين الله اكبر بس حركة اللي بس بدنا نرجع حقنا نرجع كل اللي بيصير فينا عشان الطحين يا الله
So as you can, I don't know if what you were able to hear there, a relentless gunfire. The way to solve this, it would be simple. You said you have 24/7 monitoring of GHF sites. The surveillance video must reach out to where the IDF lines are. I'm not saying publish that publicly.
I'm not sure that's the case.
Because I know you don't want Hamas to see it.
I'm not sure that's the case, but I can
share it privately with journalists who could review it and then describe whether or not, because maybe the gunfire was coming from somewhere else. But so could you commit to at least talking to your superiors about giving 100%. Access to the surveillance tapes?
Yes, I will make that. And by the way, I'm a person who thinks transparency and more visibility will help, because I've been there and I haven't seen anything like this. What I will tell you right now, if the IDF is killing civilians anywhere in Gaza, let alone anywhere near our sites, we will call it out and push them not to do that. And that's a tragedy, and it should not be happening. You can hear the IDF on our sites. So they are not, sorry, to be clear, when you are on our site, you can hear the IDF conducting operations far away. You can hear it a little closer. You can hear gunfire is endemic to the region, right? So you can hear it. You cannot see, from at least one of the sites that I'm usually on, you cannot see the aid seekers, right? I mentioned that they gather over almost a kilometer away, and just because of structures and Rafah is rubble. The IDF has turned Rafah into rubble. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that.
Chapin,
but we push them every day to do things more safely and more securely.
We can shift gears a little bit here. There are two more that I want to get from you, and I'll let Ryan, if he has other things he wants to get from you before we let you go. We can put D5 up on the screen. So the Washington Post got their hands on a Trump administration presentation of the so-called Gaza Riviera plan. This is one sort of slide in their presentation of what they want to do as part of this plan to completely displace all 2 million Palestinians living, 2 million plus, however many Palestinians remain in the Gaza Strip. And if we can keep this up on the screen, GHF figures quite prominently into this plan that has been described as a total and complete ethnic cleansing. So you can see on the left hand, they describe the humanitarian operations, of which, they name check you all. GHF operates under a humanitarian mandate to secure its humanitarian operations and personnel. Hamas-free humanitarian transition areas are established. And then in the next phase, they say that the Great Trust is created and GHF folds under the Great Trust. First of all, are you aware of this presentation? And has GHF had any input or role in putting together this plan that, again, would amount to the complete and total displacement of all 2 million Palestinians who are currently inside the Gaza Strip?
So I think this is the one from earlier this year. Is that right?
That's right.
This was released, maybe a month ago?
But it was from earlier this year. That's right.
I thought longer. It doesn't matter. I think we're talking about the same thing. So that is not a GHF slide deck. We had nothing to do with creating it. I'm not even sure who did. And so we have had no conversations about any of these kind of ideas.
No one in your organization. You can say no one with confidence. Yes, no one in your organization has had participation in the Gaza, quote unquote, Gaza Riviera plans.
Yeah, no one in the current organization. What I will say is we are a product of President Trump's call for innovative solutions. I think it was last fall. And there were a ton of wacky ideas and a ton of different things that happened. But we were formed, I believe, in February in Delaware. We're an American nonprofit, and we have a very small.
Does GHF oppose this plan?
I don't know the details. I assume we would oppose it. And again,
do you oppose ethnic cleansing in general and the displacement of Palestinians? Then you can say you oppose the plan without reservation, because that's what the plan is.
Right, but again, I haven't seen it. I've only seen that slide. So, I'm
seems like something you should look into since you're featured prominently in it.
Of course, we are opposed to ethnic cleansing. We are opposed to war crimes. Yes, of course, we are opposed to casualties. We're opposed to the war. We are pro ceasefire. We are pro more aid. And what I would recommend extreme skepticism that anyone wants to stop the GHF and shut us down, because what that means is less aid into Gaza. Anyone who's advocating for less aid into Gaza, I would meet with extreme skepticism. We are against that. We are pro aid. We are pro the Arab states sending in the airdrops. We are pro the United Nations. We have had meetings with them in New York recently that were productive, and we are optimistic that we can work with them. We stand ready, willing, and eager to do that. We are ready, willing, and eager to expand into as many sites. President Trump and his team have been, have had private meetings that have been publicly reported about the future of Gaza and humanitarian efforts there. We're ready to expand and feed more people. We await, word from them and direction from the American government on, resources and how that's going to look. But we are not participating in those conversations in an active way.
Let me just follow on that real quickly. Philip Riley. Philip Riley is can you tell us who Philip Riley is?
Yeah, he's, I don't know exact title, but he runs our logistics subcontractor, SRS.
It was reported that he consulted with Boston Consulting Group through the development of this plan. That appears to be a pretty close link between, if your head of logistics is advising Boston Consulting Group, according to news reports.
So Mr. Riley has actually been in country since for a long time, because he was helping run the checkpoints of the border. So he has certainly been involved in conversations that have evolved over time. And like what I would say is there were a lot of conversations. There was a lot of public stuff. BCG is not involved in GHF. I don't know exactly the origin story of that. But like I said, there are a lot of wacky ideas that came out of President Trump's call for innovative solutions here. But ours is very focused on our model and feeding people.
So it does seem then that someone in the organization, Philip Riley, head of SRS, had conversations that were involved in creating this Gaza Riviera plan, which is tantamount to,
I don't know that to be true.
Or it may have been some other.
Yeah, I don't think
something else with Boston Consulting Group.
Sure. I mean, Boston Consulting Group has 1 million of foreign clients. Has a lot of work with the United Nations. Yeah,
One of the other things.
Those conversations. All I know is there were a lot of wacky ideas. I can't speak to everyone on the team who may or may not involve those conversations. But what evolved from that was the current GHF model, which is to feed the people of Gaza in a way that Hamas can't steal it at safe distribution sites.
And one of the other things you've been criticized for is, or the sense that only kind of friendly reporters are allowed, quote unquote, friendly reporters allowed on the GHF site. Would you commit to allowing a Breaking Points or drop site reporter to visit the site in the same way that some of these other reporters had?
Well, sure. Between you, me, and your audience, I push for this every day. It is an active war zone and it's complicated, but I will absolutely commit to pushing for more. I do every day. That's why I'm here, right? And I believe that what we are doing is running smoothly. And is really quite moving to see. So I'll be happy to make that request on your guys' behalf.
And Chapin, how do you rebut the idea that there has been partisan favoritism here? I mean, you yourself are a Republican strategist. There were 2 Democratic senators who attempted to gain access. They were denied. Joni Ernst was allowed. It does appear that, sort of partisan-aligned media has been granted much more access. Of course, the Trump administration has been as well. So how do you rebut that criticism that there has been blatant partisan favoritism played in terms of who gets access to the aid site?
Well, I don't think that's true about the Democratic senators not being allowed. They were offered and rejected the offer to come to see a distribution. And again, this is for other people to debate, right? Everything in America is highly politicized, and support for Israel or Palestine and that binary choice is changing in America. But that's for others to debate, right? We're focused on feeding people. If a United States senator wanted to come see a distribution, we would absolutely bring that senator out.
And then the last very technical question I have for you, because this was another thing that was raised by Anthony Aguilar, is he said that the contractors you hire come into Israel on a standard tourist visa. We asked you all in an email exchange about that, and the response we got is that all GHF contractors are, quote, authorized to work. What does that mean? Under what legal authority specifically? And are you concerned about legal liability either for yourself or for contractors at GHF?
So no, I mean, we are doing the right thing. We're trying to feed people every single day in a war zone where the risk is never zero. I'd have to get back to you on the exact, I'm not an international affairs lawyer. I don't know exactly.
When you entered, what sort of visa? What sort of visa did you use?
I think, a work, I don't know the exact term. I did not pick vacation. When you fill out the form online, you get a drop-down menu. It wasn't for permanent work, but it was for, business purposes that I'm in the country. And those are temporary, right? When you are here for a certain amount of time, you certainly your visa has to change and you start paying Israeli taxes and all that kind of stuff. I'm not involved in those conversations. I'm sure they'll tell me when I have to fill out different paperwork, but everyone is here legally, validly for valid legal reasons, for sure.
And last question for me. I just want to make sure I understand the point that you were making earlier. One of the big holdups in the ceasefire negotiations between Hamas and Israel has been whether or not the UN aid system would be reinstituted. As Krystal mentioned, at times it seemed like GHF was opposed to that and GHF wanted to kind of maintain its position. Is that no longer GHF's official position that if Israel would agree that you are completely comfortable turning back over the humanitarian aid distribution system to the United Nations and other aid organizations?
So what I would say is we support the United Nations operating. The legacy system had some problems, and we believe they have some execution problems with their ability to do the job. But we were never meant to replace them. We would work alongside them. And what I would say is a humanitarian organization really is in the business of putting itself out of business. So if the United Nations could meet the full need of the hunger problem in Gaza, GHF would no longer need to operate. We are prepared to be there and work with whomever would like to work with us until the full need is met. But certainly if the full need is being met, GHF does not need to be here.
All right, Chapin Fay, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, of course.
All right, guys, so we are now joined by Anthony Aguilar, who you all know as the former Green Beret turned GHF whistleblower, who's going to join us to respond to that interview we just had with Chapin Fay of GHF, and we'll have some other questions for Anthony as well. But great to see you, Anthony. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to see you both, and good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So you were able to take a listen to the interview that we conducted with Chapin Fay. Before we get into some of the specific claims he made about you in particular, which I do want to give you a chance to respond to, what was your impression overall of the interview and how it comported with your experience that you've asserted that you witnessed on the ground in Gaza?
It's becoming quite evident to me that over the course of the interviews and discussions that have been had with Mr. Chapin Fay of the GHF, that their position is becoming much more desperate and erratic. On the 29th of July, when they had a major announcement to make, I requested to be a part of that presser, and they denied it. On the 4th of August, when they had their next big announcement, I requested to be able to answer questions. I was actually dialed into both of those events, and they openly denied it. For this occasion, I would gladly take the opportunity to have a discussion with Mr. Chapin Fay, both of us together having a discussion. I don't think that he would. I don't know if he would accept that invite, but I would I would sincerely appreciate the opportunity.
Well, and I can say we actually did ask for you both to be part of the segment today, so that he could make his claims directly to you, and they declined.
Oh, well, not surprised. But so I just wanted to go into some of the, before we go into the specifics with Amir and some of the personnel aspects, which we can gladly cover again. I want to start off with some points that I agree with Mr. Chapin Fay. I'd like to start from a point of compromise. I agree what he said, that he does not know what he's talking about when he doesn't understand the military aspects of the sites. I agree with that. He has no idea what he's talking about from a tactical operational perspective about what the sites, where they're located, what happens around the sites. For him to say that the entrance to the sites or the visualization from the sites is a kilometer away is not true. I was there. I having served as an infantryman in combat as a Green Beret, I can tell distances off the back of my hand, and I know what I'm talking about. He contradicted himself anyway when he said that, perhaps the holding area is a kilometer away. But then when you hear the shooting outside of the site so very close that he claims is the IDF and not GHF, well, that it's because they're close. So which is it, Chapin? Are they a kilometer away, or are they close? I don't think Mr. Chapin Fay knows what a kilometer is. So I'll give him an opportunity to research that. The other aspect about that, not necessarily knowing what's going on the sites. He went to site 1, he went to site 3 for photo opportunities. You can see him on the GHF webpage where he's doing somewhat of what you would look at as a influencer type of selfie styled interview. The truth is that Mr. Chapin Fay, in the time that he has been in Israel for crisis media management, stays at the Sheraton Hotel in Tel Aviv at $1,200 a night. Fact. That's where he stays. So in the time that he's been staying there, Mr. Chapin Fay, just to stay at the hotel, at the executive suite for security reasons, has spent over $28,000 just in lodging for him to be there. That money should be spent on food, water, finding ways to improve the sites. But no, he is a grifter. Furthermore, with the sites and talking about, that they innovate. GHF innovates, according to Mr. Chapin Fay. What about water? Why haven't they innovated to delivering water? I think that would be a fantastic.
You might have heard him say that they're exploring digging wells at their sites now.
Mm-hmm. They're exploring digging wells is like me doing my taxes at the DMV with a librarian. That is never going to happen. They use words. They use description of words. For example, when he said to you that he would gladly follow up with you talking to family, I would seriously consider following up on that doggedly, because I don't think that they're going to afford that opportunity.
We will.
Sure. It's unfortunate that we can't have honest conversations, and that if you look at the incident or the press brief from the 29th of July and then the press brief that was just here on the 4th of August, they refuse to address the allegations and the critical concerns of the starvation and the shooting near and at the sites. People have died on the sites. For Mr. Chapin Fay to say that no one has ever died on the sites is categorically false.
Well,
on the 19th
he said
of July.
There were deaths at the stampedes, but
yeah, deaths during the stampedes. That was not the fault of Hamas. The death on the 2nd of June when the woman was hit in the head with the stun grenade, and the Safe Reach Solutions operations director was so hurriedly trying to get her out of there on a donkey cart. The individual that you showed the video today of the GHF Safe Reach Solutions contracted U.S. contractor shooting from the berm. The oh yeah, I think you got one, hell yeah, that wasn't the IDF. That was a U.S. contractor firing on the site. To say anything different is just, it's ludicrous. I mean, and GHF even said themselves in a statement that they fired the individual. So if he wasn't shooting and it wasn't him that that said that. If that was the IDF, why did they fire him? If I was that individual, I'd be filing a wrongful termination suit, because if they're now saying that it wasn't him and he didn't do anything wrong, then why'd they fire him? So, their narratives over time just don't add up. They don't make sense. And I think that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in their PR approach rely on people forgetting what has been said, or rely on people not being able to put the pieces together in this by saying that it's complicated, or that it's too complex for the average person to understand. So therefore, you must just take everything that GHF takes as gospel. And GHF, then their position is that the IDF can't be trusted. The Médecins Sans Frontières can't be trusted. The UN can't be trusted. The Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by the Palestinian Liberation Authority, not Hamas, they can't be trusted. Other organizations, doctors, surgeons, me, can't be trusted. So, I'd like to answer a question that Mr. Chapin Fay asked directly about me in terms of what kind of man I am. Well, when Mr. Chapin Fay was at Amherst College hanging out at Drake's bar with his friends, I was serving in uniform and fighting in war for this country. That's the kind of man I am. Integrity, morals. I'm not a paid spokesman. I don't get paid by anybody to be a paid spokesperson. I don't get paid to stay in lavish hotels and give press conferences where I have the ability to not answer questions. What I saw in Gaza, what I experienced on the ground, is the truth. There is indiscriminate killing. There is massive displacement. We, the United States, through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, are complicit in the continued starvation of the population. There is a famine. People are dying every day of hunger. The bombing that's going on right now in northern Gaza that is televised every day. All of those civilians are being displaced to the south, where the GHF will hold them in one big area, where he said it himself. Site 4 was closed because of security. It is closed because of security, and the IDF are currently occupying the site in the Netzarim corridor. That's a fact. The construction in the south, where they now only have 2 sites open, that construction is the expansion of the 2.7 kilometer concentration camp that GHF will run. They are trying to distract from the reality. They are trying to distract from the facts with these dramatic announcements of, we have a big announcement to make, and it's all about discrediting me. And I say, bring it on, because you're just digging your hole deeper. Today, in their own press conference, talking about biometrics. Seriously? Talking about biometric collection on sites. That's not a humanitarian mission. Saying that the UN is just giving food to Hamas after every organization, to include Israel, has said that's not the case. They keep digging their hole deeper. And the truth is, the international community, legal entities within the United States, are looking into the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's financials and their activities in very deep form. They are looking deep. And when people start to go to prison and people start to throw people under the bus from GHF, Mr. Chapin Fay is going to have a very hard time hiding from the truth when he's been the one cheerleading this. So I feel sorry for Mr. Chapin Fay that he is being taken advantage of by the GHF. He doesn't even know what status he is in a country. He doesn't even know his visa status. You asked him that clearly, and he didn't know. I mean,
and Anthony, that's why we wanted to host both him and you. We all know there's limited access, certainly, to the GHF sites. There's limited access from international journalists into Gaza itself. So that's why we wanted to have him on and you on, and people can listen to him, listen to you, and they can make up their minds about what they believe is happening on the ground, and the claims that have been made about him and that he made about you. I want to ask you very specifically about Amir. And obviously, you came on with us and other news outlets, and you showed us pictures of a boy that you had a touching interaction with, that you said then, exited the aid distribution, you heard gunfire, and then you went and you visibly saw him, and he appeared lifeless. GHF is claiming that they have located this boy that you interacted with. We can put F1 up on the screen. This is the Fox News digital report, and we asked, obviously, Chapin about this. This is the boy that they say you interacted with. They say his nickname is actually Abood. He's asked here, they're removing him from the Gaza Strip. They asked him what he thinks about that. He says outside the Gaza Strip is nice. This is his mother. So a few things that they claim is that they were able to identify this boy through their relationship with the aid seekers on the ground. And they say that they used biometrics to confirm his identity as the same boy that you had that interaction with, and that we've all seen the pictures of. What is your response? And of course, the reason this is important is because they feel if they can rebut this explosive claim of yours that this child was killed near a GHF site, that will undermine your credibility on all the claims that you're making. So what is your response to to this reporting from Fox News Digital and the assertions from GHF?
It is my firm belief that the young boy that they featured on this 4 August featurette is not the boy that I spoke to, that I engaged with on the 28th of May at distribution site number 3 in Gaza. I don't believe the biometric confirmation piece. If they did, they would have shared it. If they had that, they would put it out. If they had that, they would surely give that as the smoking gun to prove that it's him. The mother, in one photo or in one scene, she's covered, and then the next she's not. And when I asked, could she be interviewed uncovered? They said, well, that's culturally inappropriate. But she's uncovered in another. The story doesn't make sense. That is not Amir. That young boy, though he looks similar, there are so many features that are different. He doesn't have the chipped front incisor. So did they get him dental work? The scar on his forehead, the scar that this boy has on his forehead that Amir didn't, the different size in the ears, the height, the stature, the hand gestures. It's not the same child. And what I would further ask is that the story of Amir in terms of this young boy coming to a distribution site, separated from his family. The woman that they feature there is not his mother. It's his stepmother. He's separated from his family. His father was killed in an airstrike. He was living in an encampment.
I think the claim is that is his mother, but Middle East Eye had interviewed his stepmother. And so there are a couple other claims that GHF and also some outlets have made that call into question the credibility of the story. I want to get you to respond to those. One being that you described being at an aid site that was closed on the day that you described being on that aid site. 2 being that the video of the interaction shows a slightly different interaction than the one that you described. And 3 being that at different times you've told different versions of the story. One version was that you saw his lifeless body and described the wounds that he had suffered. And in other versions, you said you saw shooting in his direction and you believed that he had been killed, and that there's a discrepancy between those different versions. So let's take those one by one. Maybe start with the most recent one, like the discrepancies in the different versions that you had told.
So discrepancy 1 in terms of the site. In an interview in my discussion, I said that it was at site number 2 on the 28th of May. And I have since not only corrected that, but I've said that in saying that it was site number 2, it was site number 3. That is a fact. Site number 1, 2, and 3 are all very close. And to say that site number 2 wasn't, that I said that he was at a site that wasn't open for 2 weeks, that's categorically false. Site 2 is open 3 days later. We were at site number 2. And to remember, I went to all of the sites. I didn't just work site 3 and therefore, you don't even know what site you're at. I worked all of the sites. So in that day, in that same day, in the afternoon of that exact same day, I was at Site 2 because we were establishing the hookup for a generator to get the site running and operational. So mistaken in terms of when I said that I was at Site number 2 on the 28th of May for distribution. I was at Site number 2 on the 28th of May. The photo of me and Amir and on that location is at distribution site number 3, the Khan Yunis site. That's a fact. I was at Site number 3. So forgive me for misspeaking 2 or 3 when both sites are about 100 meters from each other.
Okay, so that's that
to the second point of the interaction. The video that was provided by this source, the Daily Wire, and remember, let's consider sources here. So the Daily Wire has what they called a body cam footage, of which did not come from me. I did not have a body cam. The contractor that was standing next to me, that they said they got the footage from, didn't have a body cam. So if they're talking about what he and I individually took off of our iPhones as non-professional photographers that were there just taking the scene, in the Daily Wire's publication of this engagement, when Amir comes up to us and he clearly kisses the hand of the contractor next to me, and he clearly turns to me, and as I'm reaching out my hand to talk to him, the body cam footage that the Daily Wire showed conveniently has 8 seconds where that body cam is not, or the camera isn't facing towards myself and Amir in the conversation that we were having. I never said that Amir and I had a conversation where we broke bread and we were together for hours. It was a very quick interaction. As I extended my right hand, he kissed my right hand. I placed my hands on his shoulder. You can see this in the pictures that I have of each step along the way. In the video that the Daily Wire provided, they conveniently leave out 8 seconds showing my interaction with Amir. And I don't have that video because I took a video of kind of the overall scene, not that particular interaction. So they have this video, they own it. I don't have control over it. They won't release it to anybody, but they cut 8 seconds out of it, which I think is a pretty important 8 seconds. It shows that interaction. But regardless of the infinite details of the interaction occurred on the 28th of May at Site number 3. Amir was a living boy. Amir was a living human being who was at the site, who I spoke to, who was there with a meager amount of scraps of food that he picked up from the ground that can clearly be seen by all. So the third point of discussion in terms of what I saw. Mm-hmm. So each of the sites are surrounded on all 4 sides by a 20-foot berm. When I was engaging with Amir from inside the site, I am on the inside side of that berm, just like every contractor is. We are not allowed, we are forbidden by the IDF to travel beyond the berm, beyond the wall, so to speak. We can't go outside of the sites. We can only stay on them or at the towers or on the top of the berms. When the crowd was leaving, there was the small group of individuals left because, as I've described before, with this large, massive crowd of people coming in, and typically at the end, you have women and children that remain, Amir was amongst them. You also saw in the pictures and videos, there was another boy that was wearing a black shirt that was with him too, that was a little bit older. He was amongst them too. And they go and they're leaving. The UG Solutions contractors at that point, shortly thereafter, as they're saying bye to me, and he looks back at me and they're going, and I, distribution from my perspective was complete at that point. So I'm walking back towards the trucks to, see when we're leaving. Shooting breaks out. The IDF begins shooting. Now, remember, this was only our second day of distribution. There was not a clear pattern of this was all new to us. I was at Site number 1 the day before. And on this distribution day, I'm at Site number 3. So when the IDF began shooting, to me, that seemed concerning because it was so close. The Markava tank that's parked outside of the exit to Site number 3, where these people were leaving from, is very, very close to the site. So when Mr. Fay was talking about the difference between a machine gun or a coaxial machine gun, I'd say, stay in your lane. You don't know what you're talking about. I was an infantry officer, a Green Beret for 25 years. I know the difference between coaxial dismounted machine guns, what fires off a tank, and the Markava tank. So please, anybody, when he talks about the difference between machine gun fire, like at least give me that credibility. At least give me that I understand what I'm talking about. So the machine gun fire from the Merkava tank was very close. So I went up to the berm, stood 20 feet high on this berm looking to the north. And it wasn't a kilometer away, as Mr. Chapin Fay said. It was not a kilometer away. It was about 160 meters away. And if anyone in the military has qualified on their weapon system, you know that you qualify on your weapon system with open sights with the naked eye out to 300 meters. So can you see that? Absolutely, you can see that. And what I saw, and what I'd like to further direct people's attention to, is that if you look at if you watch the BBC interview between me and Mr. Jeremy Bowen that was on, I think, the 28th or the 29th of July, somewhere around that time frame, you will see it opens up with Jeremy speaking very eloquently. This may look like a battle scene, but it's not. This is a distribution site. That scene where Palestinians are lying on the ground and bullets are flying into them and hitting the road and flying over them. You could hear the bullets whizzing overhead. You can hear the bullets hitting into the crowd. That is the exact same intersection of the exit to Site 3, where it tees into the Morag corridor, and where you see them lying on the ground and you see that piece of elevated dirt. That is the Morag corridor. That location where that was filmed, where Palestinians are taking cover from machine gun fire, is that exact same location. That is the spot that I observed that day. And off camera, you don't see it, but the machine gun fire that you hear, that is coming from the coaxial machine gun of the Merkava tank that's at the intersection that was firing into the crowd, firing into that crowd to keep them going west. So as this group was leaving, never have I said, I have never made the accusation that the IDF were waiting there with children in their sights, opening up with the machine gun at them. I think that there's probably some unethical, immoral things going on, but I've never made that claim. What I claimed was that the IDF were shooting into the crowd for crowd control, as they had demonstrated in the past at site number 1. As this crowd is leaving, and you have a machine gun that's firing, you can't see machine gun bullets fly through the air. So if I'm running down a road and there's a machine gun, I don't see the bullets and can stop and know. So you have women and children who are leaving the site frantic because they've been hit with stun grenades and tear gas and pepper spray, and the UG Solutions contractors shooting in the air, as Chapin described, and they're running. And you have the Merkava tank sitting outside the position that is shooting its machine gun that cannot see the exit because of the berm next to the tank. And as that machine gun was shooting and these people were leaving and they ran into that hail of gunfire at that exact intersection that's described in that BBC video, people fell to the ground. People hit the ground. When Amir, the boy that I was looking at, when he fell to the ground, he didn't fall to the ground like someone that was taking cover or someone that was, taking a knee and scared and getting down. He dropped to the ground. And when a 7.62 millimeter bullet hits a human being, the drop to the ground is not something that, it's not in the movies where there's this dramatic, you drop to the ground. And that's what happened to that young boy. And I am confident, I believe, and I firmly believe that his body, like hundreds of others, is buried in the dirt outside of that site, because every time we did distribution, at the end of every distribution, the IDF would move through, escorted by tanks. I have this on photo. I have videos of it. Escorted by tanks with their bulldozers to bulldoze the whole area. And they would do this after every distribution. So you also heard from a contractor that did an interview with CBS about 2 weeks ago, talking about how he was directed as a truck driver to pick up body parts and would see the IDF burying the bodies outside of the sites. That individual was not me. That was not me. That is an entirely different contractor. So it is my belief that Amir's body, like many, is buried in the dirt outside of site number 3, and that the Safe Reach Solutions and GHF put great effort into using biometrics. And I also have concerns that U.S. DOD assets were leveraged to do this based on the position of one of the people within SRS and his correspondence back to members of the Joint Special Operations Command. So this is being looked into. So with the assets that were applied to this to find a boy that looks like Amir, they put great effort into it. And I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask them that I don't know if they'd ever answer, which I did ask them. Fox News Digital reached out to me and said, do you have a response? You have until 10 p.m. And I responded to it in great detail. And I got no response back from them, nor did they consider anything of what I said. Your platform and other platforms, whenever they have questions and they reach out to GHF for clarification or rebuttal, you always consider what they've said in your follow-on questions or your questions to me or others. Why doesn't Fox Digital do that? Is it because Chapin Fay used to work for them? I don't know. That's for the audience to decide. But when you look at the outlets that they choose to give their information to, the Daily Wire, Fox News Digital, it raises questions. But if they found this boy, if they found Amir on the 23rd of August, they didn't come forward that he had been found until the 4th of September. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation does not have the authority to investigate, detain, hold, or safekeep any Palestinian, period. They do not have the authority. They are there as tourists. So what they did was kidnapping. What they did was then send the young boy out of the country. And if Gaza is so dangerous that they had to take a young boy and get him out of the country, why don't they do that for every child? If Gaza is so dangerous, why can't they do that for every child?
What they were saying is that they were worried, this is their wording, that they were worried that Hamas would find him and find him still being alive to be damaging to their messaging, because it would undermine your credibility if he was found alive, so that they were worried that then Hamas would go out and kill him in order to kind of buttress your credibility. One thing that to me lends credibility to the GHF claim is that the family structure that they describe for Aboud is similar to the family structure that as we understand it with Amir. And so I'm curious what your interactions with the Amir's family have been like, and what you can, and would you be willing to, speak with Aboud in order to try to determine? Because would you think if you could do a Zoom call with Aboud, that you'd be able to then determine to your satisfaction whether or not this is the same boy?
Oh, absolutely. If I have asked for that opportunity, and there's just some clear indicators of the young boy Aboud, and I have no doubt, I have zero doubt at all that young boy who they have is a Palestinian boy who was probably at one of the sites at one point, whose name is probably Aboud. I have no doubt that young boy is who he is, but he is not Amir. The scar on his clavicle magically disappeared. A new scar on his forehead. He had dental work. His ears are different sites. I am quite confident that is not Amir. And if I had the opportunity to speak to him, if anybody had the opportunity to speak to him, I think it would be clear. Why can nobody talk to him? Why? You would think that they would want independent journalists there interviewing him and showing the world, but yet they provide us these grainy videos that they have that GHF, when you ask GHF, what's your source? Well, we're our own source. Okay, well, that's not very transparent, Mr. Chapin Fay, who wants transparency. Let others talk to him. I'm the only, so the other thing is that out of the people they had there, Chapin Fay, he's never met Amir. He wouldn't know the difference between Amir and the boy next door. He's never seen him. The aid workers, these humanitarian workers that they featured in this videoette, one of them is not a humanitarian worker. He's a contractor. He's a contractor who's been accused of assault, who's still working there. He's not an aid worker. He's never seen Amir either. The other person that's working at the site, she's not an aid worker. In fact, that individual, and I'm not going to say her name because they accuse me of wanting to, dock somebody, but anybody can look it up. That individual there that is in the picture not this particular picture, but the one with Abood, she was kicked out of the West Bank by the IDF for being pro-Hamas or having connections to Hamas. They kicked her out of the West Bank, and then she shows up at IDF or GHF looking for a job. That person. Then you have the other, the who I will mention her name because she's already been identified, but Jennifer Counter, she's not a humanitarian aid worker. She was a career covert case officer in the CIA who now works for GHF, who was the vice president of operations for Orbis that runs the engine software for the biometrics that GHF is using in country. Put all these pieces together. These aren't humanitarian workers, and none of them have ever seen Amir. Why not bring the contractor that was with me on the site that day? Why not interview him?
And Anthony, just to go back to Ryan's question, there were additional questions raised about the timeline, because I believe it was May 29th that you had the interaction with Amir that there's photographic evidence of. We just had
May 28th.
May 28th. There was a report that his mother or stepmother, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one. Stepmother said that no, he didn't go missing until July. So, which obviously would not coincide with him having been killed on that day of May 28th. Did you speak with the family? What is your understanding of why there is that confusion and discrepancy?
I not only spoke with the stepmother and the uncle, but I also spoke with the mother. And again, these are all what we're assuming to be these relationships. There's no verification, but we're going with what's been said and who's been said. Out of all those individuals, between the stepmother, the mother, and the uncle, no one has ever demonstrated to me verification that they even know or have a relationship with the boy. However, in taking their word for it and saying that dates, so to speak, the stepmother, so the overall situation is young Amir lived with his mother and father in Khan Yunis, the city of Khan Yunis. Mm-hmm. When it was bombed and they were forced out, his father was killed and he was separated from his mother in the evacuation. Mm. When they moved them all to the Khan Yunis camp, so not Khan Yunis city, but Khan Yunis UN camp, a family took him in. The mother that says his stepmother is not a stepmother by any type of formal familial connection. They took him in. On the 28th of May, he and his uncle, who I talked to, who I spoke with, were going to site number 3 to get aid to bring back to the family. At the intersection of the Morag corridor and the coastal corridor where the crowd was being held on that morning, when they started shooting at the crowd to hold them back, the crowd panicked and Amir was separated from his uncle. His uncle didn't make it through the this many people can come line when the crowd was released. Amir did, and he was with the crowd. When he showed up to the site, he had no one. There was no parent, no uncle, no family, no brothers, no siblings, no one. The boy in the black shirt that was there even said like this, he doesn't know where his family is. So the mother that had said that, well, he didn't go missing until the 29th of July, it's quite interesting to me that the mother that only GHF says they talked to, who is concealed, happens to say that the day that he went missing is the same day that they decided to then do their next smear campaign story. So that's one data point. But to the point, she also said, the stepmother also said that her son wasn't at site number 3 on the 28th of May. Okay, well, I have pictures and videos of the boy that I talked to on the 28th of May. So if her son, or who she's missing, may have been Abood, was not at site number 3 on the 28th of May, well, then that's not Amir. And we're not talking about the same person. Furthermore, GHF has already used their Uno card, their reverse Uno card of, oh, the boy's still alive. On the 29th of May, when I was sitting in your studio, as a matter of fact, when we talked about their claims, where they said from the attorney, Mr. Dave Panzer, who says, Mr. Aguilar claims that on the 28th of May, he saw this young boy and that this young boy died. Well, here's a picture of the same boy the following day at the same site. He's not dead. So they've already claimed that he was still alive then. And to be clear, both of those pictures, the picture that I have of Amir and the picture that I have of the other boy they said was Amir, are not from the same site. I took both of those pictures. I have the metadata. One picture was taken from site number 3 on the 28th of May. The other picture was taken at site number 4 on the 2nd of June. There is no way, because of the restrictions in the movement to the military corridors between Rafah and Khan Yunis to Barij, that any Palestinian that was at site 1, 2, or 3, there's no way they could have been at site number 4. So that is not the same boy. And them saying that, they've already made that claim. So now twice now they've said, well, Amir's still alive and here he is. And on both occasions, it's 2 different boys. So and I can tell you, like, I have children. When you look at your children, you know different, like the boy that they have in their featurette is not Amir. It is not. Similar? Yes. And what I would like to keep in mind with everybody is that we're talking about an organization that is run by the CIA, that in it has an absolute motive to discredit me because of what I know and what I've seen and the facts that I have. The only way out they have from war crimes and prison and being investigated by the government is to make people believe that I'm not credible as a witness. That's their strategy. And what I would ask everybody to look through this deeply is that look at the pictures. They don't look alike. They're not the same child. But even if it were, it does not change the fact that now perhaps they say that is okay. Let's just say for sake of the GHF argument that is Amir. Like, we can biometric DNA testing. It's beyond a doubt. That is him. Okay, got it. Well, then what happened to the child that was killed at site number 3 on the 28th of May, along with the others? Because a child and children and women were killed. So was it the boy in the black shirt then? Was it the other little boy and children that were there? So they keep coming out with these, oh, well, here's Amir. Okay, well, then where is he? Oh, on the 29th of May, we talked to the mother and the mother said he was never there. But then here's the Amir that she says, and none of the names match. Okay, well then what seems to me is that there's not just one kid that's missing, there's 2 kids that are missing. And now they're coming out and saying like, oh, Amir's alive, here he is. Okay, well then there's potentially 3 kids that have been murdered and missing. So that their argument makes no sense. And it is deeply, deeply concerning to me that they think that this parading of a boy they found alive, that makes everything okay. And it doesn't.
Another argument that they've made that they say undermines your credibility is that you're a disgruntled employee who basically wanted to kind of shake them down and threaten them, and threatened to take them apart or destroy them if they didn't meet your demands. I think let's play. I think F3 is from them.
As late as July 4th, Mr. Aguilar informed UG leadership that he had submitted a new application for work in Gaza. He wrote to the company on June 14th, quote, I do not want to leave. I understand that my current contract as the JTOC operator is terminated. Fine, but I can be put on a new contract. If other personnel liking that or not is the fear, then UG is being held hostage. I can be of huge value to this company and contract. Take advantage of me as an asset. And Mr. Aguilar threatened UG Solutions with retribution if he wasn't hired back. And so the next day, on July 15th, he wrote that he could be, quote, your best friend or your worst nightmare. Stop effing around, put me back to work, and let's get this mission done. In a June 21st message, Mr. Aguilar cited his personal family needs when begging to be rehired. Mr. Aguilar ended the message with, quote, figure something out or I'm on a plane come Tuesday and the gloves are off. On May 28th, Mr. Aguilar distributed a signal message praising UG Solutions, and he said, quote, delivering and distributing 318.3 tons of humanitarian aid to a starving and displaced population. He wrote, sentiment in the media, despite whatever people may think about the politics of the situation, your presence, meaning UG's presence, GHF's presence, is seen as a good thing. On the same day, Mr. Aguilar wrote to UG Solutions leadership, this is a very rewarding mission. I'm excited every day. These are the relevant times during which Mr. Aguilar was claiming to have sent a memo to the company raising issues. On May 31, he shared a similar sentiment with his colleagues, and he wrote to them, be proud, be humble. You are making a difference in the future of this region and geopolitics around the globe.
So, I mean, don't they make a fair point that you threatened them, that the gloves would come off if they didn't give you your job back? They didn't give you the job back, and now the gloves are off. How do you respond to that?
The separate signal message on the gloves are off and your worst nightmare was not pertaining to my employment. It was pertaining to my charges of assault against the UG Solutions operations officer, a gentleman named Mo Katab, who assaulted me, who called me a quote unquote P word, P-U-S-S-Y, called me a coward. And after I resigned, and slapped me and broke my phone. The conversation there with the gloves are off, or that I can be your worst nightmare, is that when the UG Solutions Chief Operations Officer, corporate, Mr. Nate Potter, contacted me to tell me, we're going to pay for your phone, we're going to do an investigation. They even sent me this nice formal letter thanking me for my hard work and telling me they were going to investigate. And I told them, before I leave Israel, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a discussion. The leadership, Mr. Katab, and me. And we're going to discuss, one, that, I want an apology. You don't slap we're adults. You don't slap somebody because you don't agree with them. Two, some type of consequence or action. He should have been fired, or at least, an investigation done. And their response to me was that we investigated and we agree that, he didn't hit you that hard. That was their response. So my position to them was that you have an employee in a senior position that assaulted another employee, meaning he assaulting me, and you're doing nothing about it. You can address it here as a company, or when I get home to North Carolina, I will be filing criminal charges against this individual and the company for negligence in allowing it to happen. You cannot get away.
You seem also to be asking for your job back or to extend your contract.
So the contract job that in the discussion there is I resigned on the 13th. I resigned in writing. Safe Reach Solutions upon my resignation. So what Mr. Chapin Fay said, that Safe Reach Solutions is like the logistics company, that's not true. Safe Reach Solutions is the prime contract. Safe Reach Solutions is the one that receives the money from the Israeli government, from COGAT, to pay for each of the aspects. UG Solutions is under Safe Reach Solutions.
Which they deny, by the way.
Well, that they receive Israeli funding.
Right.
Well, here's the thing, though. Mr. Chapin Fay denies that GHF receives funding. GHF does not receive funding from COGAT. SRS directly receives the money from COGAT. And I know they do because we were there when we had on the second day of being in country, when we were supposed to receive our weapons and they weren't there. I was partially in charge of trying to figure out how to get them. And what we had come to realize was that COGAT had not yet released the funds to Safe Reach Solutions for us to purchase the weapons. So COGAT, which is the Israeli government, Ministry of Defense, is absolutely 100% paying Safe Reach Solutions. They have a contract. So for Chapin Fay to say that GHF isn't accepting money, okay, GHF isn't. GHF can't accept any money. They have no agency as a thing. They don't exist. Safe Reach Solutions, and he tried to play it off by this logistics company. Safe Reach Solutions is the prime contract holder. Safe Reach Solutions and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation are owned by the same equity firm management company out of Wyoming. They are the same thing, just of two different names. However, Safe Reach Solutions receives the money directly.
Right. But so not to derail that, but yeah, go back to the point. Yeah.
So Safe Reach Solutions offered me, and I have these messages as well that they refuse to provide, that they offered me a job to stay. They said, "You're valuable. We want to put you in a position at Safe Reach Solutions to be in charge of the sites." And at that point, I had said to them, well, there's a lot of things that got to be fixed. One including to where this relationship with the IDF in terms of like who you said we're their client. Well, that's, we are, but we still have we can still have control of things. So when they offered me on the 13th, Safe Reach Solutions, after I tendered my resignation, Kevin Sullivan, Vice President of Operations for Safe Reach Solutions, who was in country, in Israel, offered me a job that was then verified through Safe Reach that, yes, we want you to work for us. Then on the 14th, Iran-Iraq war kicks off. Iran-Israel war kicks off. People forget that on the 14th, when missiles start flying, everything kind of went into this hold. We didn't know if we were going to continue. We didn't know if we were going to be allowed to go back into Gaza. We didn't know if the contract was going to continue. Everything went on hold. Safe Reach Solutions, through UG Solutions, said, well, we're all waiting here. We want you to work for us. We're going to continue to pay you. We're going to continue to pay for your hotel. We're going to continue to pay for all your expenses. And then at the point when I said, I'm done, on the 22nd of June, an Iranian missile hit the hotel next door to us and caused a lot of casualties. And I was like, I'm not hanging around in Beersheba waiting to get hit by a missile. I'm ready to go home. They then offered to pay for everything and then sent me this nicely worded letter asking me to consider working for them again. Their position of that I'm disgruntled is to discredit me by making think that I have this vendetta against GHF or UG Solutions. I don't have a vendetta against GHF or UG Solutions. For them to say that I'm disgruntled, I will agree with that. Genocide, the murdering of children, starving people, disgruntles me. It absolutely does. I'm disgruntled at the fact that they've taken what could be a good mission in feeding people and have chosen to do it in a way that's just simply leading to the forced displacement of an entire population. The discussion of the sites, where the sites are located, 400 sites versus 3 sites. What Chapin Fay failed to mention is that out of their 4 sites, the one in central Gaza that's now shut down means that the only existing sites, the 2 that exist, are all the way in the south to the furthest possible part of the south you can get to. And that diagram of the resort, and I have a photo that I'm going to share with y'all after this because it's breaking on another outlet, but I will provide it to you. There is a picture of the UG Solutions contractors on site in a big group photo with a sign that says Gaza Lago, Trump 2028. And they're all on the site. The picture that the Boston Consulting Group, BCG's picture of what the resort will look like, the Riviera, the resort, the Elon Musk Technical Park, the Innovation Center, in this beautiful rendering of a future Gaza. That thing is printed in about a 36 by 20 poster size and is on the wall of the Operations Center at Safe Reach Solutions, the Operations Center that runs operations into Gaza.
Wow.
They know exactly what this is about.
Yeah, please do send it. And by the way, BCG has distanced themselves from all of those activities, so we'll just put that out there. I want to give you some of the specifics of what GHF is asserting against you, some of the additional specifics. They say on June 13th, you were informed your contract was terminated. They say you were removed from Gaza at that point and stayed in Israel while your movement back to the U.S. was coordinated. They say you then immediately requested your job back. On June 14th, they say that you wrote to leadership, asked them to, quote, reconsider, and offered that you would, quote, work in any capacity. On June 15th, they say you demanded, we need to work something out for me to sign a new contract. And then they say you proposed multiple courses of action to continue your work for the foundation's subcontractor in a different capacity.
Yes, the conversation about the new contract. So is it a fact that my contract with UG Solutions as an independent contractor in the position of Joint Tactical Operations team leader and director of operations, was that contract terminated. That's a fact. On the 13th of June, I rendered my resignation. I terminated my contract, period. I have that. I have that documentation. UG Solutions never serviced me with any type of termination or you're terminated or this and that or whatever. And if they did, please, UG Solutions, if you fired me, please provide me with the documentation. I would love to have the documentation that you fired me. They refuse to provide it. They don't have it because they didn't terminate me. The contract talking about re-signing a new contract was a conversation between myself, Kevin Sullivan, Safe Reach Solutions Operations Director, because they asked me to reconsider. And I told them my clear conditions for reconsidering would be: one, the current person in charge of the contract in country, Mr. Johnny Taz Mulford, who is the national chapter president of the Infidels Motorcycle Club, needs to go. If you want me to stay and continue to be a part of this operation, we cannot have an individual that proclaims to fight jihad and to annihilate all Muslims on earth be in charge of distributing food into Gaza. He needs to go. The quote or the statement about you're being held hostage was my statement to UG Solutions, because their response to me was that we can't fire Mulford. Half the people here he hired. If we fire him, they'll go too. They're right, because everyone he hired are chapter members of the Infidels Motorcycle Club. They're being held hostage by the leader of a motorcycle club. So when I gave them my conditions that I will stay and I will be in charge of the sites, I will dictate in terms of, from an operations perspective, how much aid we deliver, that we are going to start delivering water, that we will have a rules of engagement, that there will be a standard operating procedures for how we do distribution, under the condition that Johnny Mulford leaves. Well, nope, we can't have that. Can't have that happen. Can't get rid of him. So that my position on that was like, you offered me to stay. You offered me in writing to stay and work for you. And I've given you my conditions and you're unwilling to meet them. Then I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to work for Safe Reach Solutions or UG Solutions or the GHF if they're going to continue with at the time, seemed to me, ignorance and incompetence.
Do you still have those messages that you sent
absolutely.
to them that you can share?
Yes. Email, June 16th, I sent a very long email describing exactly that to the leadership. Said, hey, here's my conditions, the signal messages, all of the things that they have. Mind you, GHF has all of this. And in their little 29 July and then 4 August presser, they provide none of it. They have it, but I will gladly provide that as well.
Yeah, I know you went over a lot of this with Krystal and Saga earlier, but yeah, anything in additional that you have, I think would be valuable context as this feud deepens.
Yeah, and my position on it is that, many may have seen, and I think moments, not moments, but probably an hour before it happened, I talked to you, Ryan, there in the studio, when I went to protest Congress. I don't have a feud or an interest in Gaza Humanitarian Foundation or UG Solutions or Safe Reach Solutions. My concerns are that the United States government is funding a program through a private contractor, mind you, a private contractor where there's no impunity and no oversight from the United States government, but we've given them $30 million to be a part of what is clearly a part of the displacement plan of the population of Gaza. As the IDF attack north from the Netzarim, they're doing it right now. Operation Gideon's Chariots 2, the bombing. That right now in northern Gaza, phase 1 alpha of phase 3 in the operation of clearing Gaza city is to destroy every high-rise structure. It's exactly what they're doing. As all of the people that are being displaced out of the north, there's nowhere for them to go. There's nowhere. There's no encampments left in central Gaza. There's no There's nowhere left for them to live. So they are all being forced down the coastal corridor, a 20-kilometer forced march, a death march, if you will, down to the south to be received by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, to be put in these encampments. And these encampments have no running water and no electricity and have no protections from the environment. They aren't run by anyone from the United Nations that has any expertise in how to run an indisplaced person's camp. And not only are these this one indisplaced person's camp not in locations where these people live, it's completely in the south. So now the entire population of Gaza is being concentrated in the south into an encampment. And that encampment is being guarded and run by the GHF. The United States government, the United States Congress cannot allow, one, what is happening at all in Gaza with the war and how it's being fought. This is no longer a war. Two, that we are directly involved, that American taxpayers' money is directly involved in the displacement scheme to displace the entire population. And this is not something that is for us to consider weeks or months from now. They are doing this every day. They will have, before the 18th of September, when the 1 year edict for them to stop what they're doing based on what the ICJ has put in place, there won't be anything to go back and hold anybody accountable for, because it'll all be gone. By the 23rd of September, the day that the UN has established to be the day, the Palestinian Day, where Western leaders will stand at the podium and say, we recognize a Palestinian state. Israel's already banking on the fact that there's not going to be a Palestinian state to recognize. And the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is the executor of that real estate, if you will. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that is this cloak and dagger American conglomerate led by a Christian Zionist is who the United States government is giving tax dollars to. We're so complicit in this. It's so dirty. And I think anybody out there can take 5 minutes and listen to a GHF press conference and realize that they're getting sold a bunch of lies.
And if they want, they can take a listen to the hour-long interview that we did with, as you said, Mr. Chapin Fay, which, we'll put a link to that. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put a link to that under the
I think we're going to package it all together so that people have his interview and your interview all in one piece. And Anthony, we thank you very much once again for your time today.
Thank you both. I appreciate everything you do. And I hope that in the future, Mr. Chapin Fay and the GHF would like to have a joint conversation. I would love that. I think there would be a lot of value in that. And I think that Americans need to be concerned in thinking that a humanitarian organization is conducting rescue missions and biometrics in Gaza as tourists. That's concerning.
Yeah. Thank you again, Anthony, and we'll speak with you again soon.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
All right, guys, thank you so much for sitting through both of those interviews. You can hear what Chapin Fay had to say. You can hear what Anthony had to say about both of their claims all together, and, take it in context also with the news that we cover on this show and that you guys are consuming every single day. So thank you so much for those of you who support the show and give us the opportunity to do these type of long-form interviews. If you can become a subscriber, breakingpoints.com helps us support our journalism here. Ryan, any last thoughts from you?
No, that was interesting back and forth, and I hope it's true that what Chapin Fay says, that they actually support allowing a flood of humanitarian aid and allowing the UN and other humanitarian aid groups back in. To have him effectively saying that on the record cuts against what they've been arguing, cuts against what Israel has been arguing in the ceasefire negotiations, which Dropsite actually just right now published exclusively the 100-word ceasefire proposal that Trump has made, that we're told that Israel is supportive of. That you can check that out. But basically, saying 60-day pause, the all hostages and prisoners released, within the first day or so. Some agreed upon number of Palestinians would be released, and that Trump himself would guarantee the next, would guarantee that the ceasefire would hold while both parties negotiated in good faith toward a long-term ceasefire. And one of the critical sources of disagreement is the role of GHF and the role of UN and other humanitarian aid works in getting aid into Gaza. So if it's true that Chapin Fay, as the spokesperson for GHF, is saying that they are willing to step aside, then I don't understand how the United States and Israel can continue to demand that they stay if they're willing to go.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think a lot came out of that conversation to be parsed. Ryan, thank you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sagar and I will be back with a normal, typical Breaking Point show tomorrow, so we'll see you then.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.